All right, Melissa, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Can we start maybe by you telling more about yourself and more about Melewi as well?
Sure. So my name is Melissa. I'm from Singapore. I've been a remote worker slash digital nomad for the last 7, I think coming close to 8 years now. And out of those 7 years, I've spent 5 of it running Melewi, and we're a location-independent product design studio. So we do UX, UI design. So we've been around 5 years. Right now, we're at a team of 8, and everyone's spread out across 7 countries, I think. And we work with just businesses of all kinds and all sizes around the world. So we have worked with a lot of startups from around the world, to big companies like McDonald, Samsung, Visa, and also we have done work with clients in every continent but Antarctica. I'm still making it my goal to get Antarctica on the list. But
They're getting
now,
more populated there, yeah.
So fingers crossed, right? It's gonna happen at some point. So it's been really exciting, really interesting ride. Learned a lot along the way. We've designed for millions of users around the world, so it's been definitely quite the experience.
Very cool. So sounds like you're a medic entrepreneur and you're running a remote business. So why choose this lifestyle and why a remote business?
It's mostly by accident. So I kind of fell into being a nomad by accident. I actually kind of fell into design by accident as well. I think a big part of kind of stumbling into those things was very much that I wasn't very happy with what I was being told that I had to do, or the sort of life that I was supposed to lead. I wasn't satisfied, just doing a 9 to 5, clocking in, clocking out, and just having only in Singapore, it's like 14 days of paid leave that you get in a year. And I was just not really okay with imagining that being the rest of my life. So I just decided to just do some freelance work. I learned how to design, just mostly trial and error, and then that's kind of how I got started, really, really slowly as a freelance designer. I look back and my work was terrible, but enough people liked it that I slowly started to get more and more clients. I got better at what I did. And then over time, just ended up living in Vietnam for a while, and it just kind of continued. So I had a lot of clients, and it just kept growing. But none of my clients were actually in Vietnam. They were all overseas in Singapore and Australia. But the business just kept growing anyway, and I had no idea what I was doing. I just kind of went along with it. But at some point, I just realized, like, wait a minute, if you're not actually here, then I don't have to be here. I can be anywhere. And that's when I started traveling and working remotely. And back then it wasn't really a thing. I think it was starting to become a bit of a thing, but
It's relatively new, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even know the term digital nomad.
It's a new one. They framed, yeah.
Yeah. So it was entirely by accident. And then, fast forward to now, and the company's been around 5 years. I had to hire at some point because there was just too much work for me to handle, and I just thought, well, why not? Like, if I don't want to be in an office, then I'm sure there are a lot of people out there who don't want to be in an office. So why not just make the whole team remote? And then it just went.
Very cool. So you're traveling from different countries, from one country to another, and you're running a business. So I'm really curious to know, what do you do when you get to a new place? I mean, is there anything that you structure in terms of how you actually help yourself integrate quicker to be able to work? I mean, how are you able to fly different locations and then smoothly integrate into work from there?
I have a lot of systems. I'm a little bit obsessed, I think, with having sort of systems of how to do things. A couple of ground rules that I kind of have for myself is, for example, like just fly on weekends. I do actually a bit of prep beforehand. Not so much in terms of, like Googling where to go visit or what to do, but a lot more sort of like mentally visualizing what my days are going to look like in that country. So, for example, every time I go to Europe, the time overlap that I have with my team means that I typically have to start at 7 or 8 in the morning. And I'm not really a morning person, so I actually spend, like a week just trying to envision like all the great things about starting work at 7, 8 in the morning. And I sort of mentally prepare myself to sort of slide into that lifestyle. And I think, as well, just once you kind of get to the country, just a couple of things to do. Make sure, you get a SIM card, you make sure you test your Wi-Fi, you unpack everything and kind of set things up so that you're as comfortable as you possibly can be. And that could just be like having little bits of like decoration and everything. But then also I live by my calendar, and my calendar switches time zones. So I always know like when I need to show up for calls, when I need to hop onto a meeting. And it's just a little bit of prep beforehand, and then after all, you just get used to it.
I agree. I just want to add from myself, since I've been kind of doing it as well for a few years, I am also always taking care of my food and just knowing where I get my sources of food and water. It's like one of those basics when I get to a new place, and this like covers my bases, and I'm able to really take care of myself, and then I can start taking care of work afterwards.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you cook a lot, like buy your own groceries and?
I cook 90% of my food as well. So I don't need to spend time going half an hour and commuting for a restaurant, waiting an hour, waiting half an hour to pay for someone. Yeah. I just cook it at home and eat at home, most of my food,
Yeah, that's the way to do it, I think. And you get to know like the produce of the country as well. And it's always such a fun experience, like going to a new grocery store somewhere new and just being like, ooh, what do you have? And
each country is different. I'm eating differently in any place. I'm assuming you're as well.
Yeah, I think I cook a lot of the same things back, like when I'm making food for myself, just because I really like cooking, so I kind of explore. But I will always like try something new at a grocery store wherever I'm at, but I will always try like local food at a restaurant. That's always like 100%.
Nice. So before we jumped the call, when I was doing some of my homework, I saw on your Twitter, you had a really interesting tweet where you asked your Twitter followers to choose the toughest challenge you face for managing a remote team. And I saw the number one challenge was chosen there was loneliness and psychology. I'm curious to know, is this something you think you and your team are having, or maybe other people working remotely? And if yes, how do you combat it?
That is such a good question. And some backstory to that Twitter poll was I was just a bit curious. I was kind of trying to figure out what it was that a lot of remote workers tend to struggle with. And so I actually put down, there were 4 options, and the first 3 were quite sort of team management, time zone and communication.
They're all challenges,
team culture, and it was quite work oriented. And then just on a whim, I just kind of put down like loneliness and psychology. And that was because I realized like, there are a lot of things in having built this company up that a lot of challenges that I've faced. And a lot of the ones were quite easily just overcome. You learn a new skill, you figure out how to do something. It's tough and it's challenging, but the one that kept coming back that was such a struggle was just dealing with my own psychology, dealing with like how I was feeling, my emotions. And it was one of those things that just it's not an easy thing to solve for. And so I just kind of threw it in because I know it's tough to run a company or manage a team. And I think at that point in time, maybe I was also kind of feeling quite a lot of that. So I just put it in just as a whim, and just a third of the results. I think we had close to 1,000 votes.
I said it was around 900.
Yeah, it was just a third of them picked that, and all the people that sent in replies all kind of elaborated on the loneliness and psychology part of things as well. And I do think that it's quite a big problem. And it's not just a problem for remote workers. I mean, it's especially so, but I think just in general, in everyday society, it's kind of, the more connected we seem to be technologically, the more separate we sort of are, or that we feel in society. And I think that when you're a remote worker and you sort of travel all the time, you make a lot of new connections, but they don't last for very long. But also
temporarily, yeah.
Yeah, you make a lot of new friends, but it's a lot harder to sort of achieve that depth. And then on top of that, when your teammates are not there with you, or when you're working on something by yourself and you kind of hit a bit of a frustrating point, or you feel a bit invisible, or you feel a bit isolated, it's really hard to solve for, because you don't have the people there. And so 100% it's still a challenge that I face at I think more so at work than in my personal life. But at work it does feel quite isolating sometimes, or quite lonely sometimes. And I think I've had members of my team say the same thing. I've had a lot of nomad friends who've said the same thing. And I don't think that there's an easy fix or an easy solution. I think it's a lot of having habits and sort of being quite conscientious and being quite mindful and remembering to sort of stay in touch with a lot of people. And maybe it's something like finding a base where you have some of those deeper friendships, and then just kind of travel from there. But it's a hard one to solve for. Yeah,
I agree. I've definitely faced it myself, and I know many other people who are maybe living similar lifestyle as well, running businesses and just choosing to live in different places. One of the things which helped me, which I can share right now, is just traveling with my partner. So I had a period when I was doing this lifestyle and road thing alone, and I definitely had times when I felt it as well. But when I started being with someone else, it definitely transform it for sure. And I know many of the people which I'm hiring, many of the people in my teams, I think we're partially facing as well. We're social creatures. So one of the things which came back in another interview I've done is the CEO is trying to engage the people in social activities. So after a while, you can really go over what he's doing. He's trying to send them to social activities, and they're even sponsoring it. So they're actually paying for doing physical stuff and being with other people, because we are social creatures, basically.
Yeah, that's actually a really good idea. I would definitely agree with the social creatures, and with the team. Actually, we have daily stand-ups every Monday to Friday. It's the same time every single day, and it's always really nice, and I love my team, so I always look forward to it. But a part of that is also because we have fun, we crack jokes, we laugh, we talk about things, and then we talk about work, and it's always such a nice sort of interaction to have. And it's sort of I would say the day kind of almost wraps itself around that stand-up, like it forms around the stand-up, and we don't ever miss stand-up as a team, but individually as well. Like, we try not to ever miss it, and I think it's such an important contact point. But also we found that having scheduled just have fun, let's talk about stuff time, it sounds just really inorganic, or really sort of unsexy to schedule in time to hang out and have a chat. But that's kind of the reality of remote working, is that if you don't put it in, then it's quite hard to have it happen organically.
Yeah, totally. If you don't have something in your calendar, then probably it won't happen. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. That's how I live my life.
So you've been having this lifestyle for 7 years, and you're running the company for 5 years. What would you do differently if you would start over?
Oh, that's, again, a really good question. I think one of the big things that I probably would do a bit differently, I feel like actually a lot of the things that I would have done differently is quite on more of a personal level. I think one of the hardest things was when I first started the company. I went from being sort of a freelancer, where it was all about like my brand, I guess, or I was the representation of that. And so it was very personal.
You're the brand, yeah.
Yeah. And as the company sort of went, it became such a huge part of my identity that anytime the company was having a good day, I was having a great day. And every time the company was having a bad day, I was having the worst day of my life. And it's just that simple, emotional roller coaster, because so much of my identity was just sucked into work. It just made me miserable a lot, but it also made me a lot less effective and a lot less efficient, because I wasn't running it like a business. I was running it like it was my baby. And that caused a lot of misery. So that was a really big one. And then I think the second really big one as well was sort of owning my role a little bit more. For the first couple of years, anytime someone would jokingly call me like, the boss, I would cringe and I'd be like, no, I'm not the boss. I'm like just one of you guys. And that's very much how I am in my personal life. It's just kind of how I am as a person. But bringing it to the workplace was actually doing disservice to the company, and it was actually kind of leaving the team a bit leaderless. And I kind of brought in like my personal perspective into the company in a way that it started impacting it negatively. And so I had to learn, after someone just kind of said it, straight to me, to be like, we need someone to look towards. We need someone to kind of like lead us.
Yeah.
And it was so hard. It was so hard for me to reconcile. It was so hard to carry that full weight of that responsibility and to feel like I had to, set an example for everyone. And I think a big part was that I thought that maybe setting an example meant that I had to be, a bit more proper and a bit like stiffer, and I had to have all the answers, and I just couldn't really be myself. And I resisted that for the longest time. And if I could, I would kind of shake myself, when I was a bit younger, and be like, don't do that.
Sounds like you're suggesting taking yourself more into leadership position and just trying to lead other people, if I get it right.
Yeah, I would say, don't sort of like shirk your responsibilities. And I think also a big one is just maybe, feeling a little bit of an imposter syndrome, which I think it's a really common thing. I think especially for women, it's uncomfortable to be put into a position where people are sort of watching you or judging you or assessing you or critiquing you, and you sometimes just feel like, I'm not qualified enough or I'm not worthy enough. And I think I was feeling quite a bit of that, like I wasn't enough to sort of lead the team, and so I just kind of pushed it away. So I think that was quite a big part of it.
Yeah, I do think many business owners are treating their business like a baby, as you said.
Yeah.
I know I did many times in the past as well. Like there's the emotional connection. And I also do see more and more women CEOs. So definitely more and more women in the business world, if they want to go there. I just see many examples, and here in podcasts and here in different talks as well, more and more examples of such people.
Yeah, that's really amazing. It's very, very encouraging.
Are there any myths from this lifestyle? You've been doing it for quite a while, 3 years longer than I've been doing. Are there any myths for anyone thinking, hey, I want to build a business remotely, which you can think of?
Yeah, myths. Oh, there's so many myths. I think the biggest one for me personally is that team culture cannot be built remotely. I so disagree with that, just because like the team that I have right now, easily hands down best team that I've ever worked with. And it's not just that they're really good at what they do and they're really, really skilled. It is that they are just awesome people. They have, we all share very similar values. We've all been really in this, like I think everyone on the team has put, a piece of their heart into this, and it's just that team culture that you can have. You can feel it even on a call, like even on a video call, just joking around, just talking. You can feel it when you admit that you're struggling with something or asking for help. You feel it when somebody cracks a really dumb joke and everyone gets it. I mean, it's to say that, it's the strongest team culture that I've come across and I'm probably a bit biased, but just the fact that I always look forward to stand-ups at 3 o'clock. I always look forward to a meeting, to a call. I feel like that says quite a lot. And I think we have a really solid team, and we hired so intentionally for it, and we spend so much time and energy being very meticulous about it. Like, we have put in, I think, a lot more thought and effort consistently over the last 5 years to maintain it, protect it, grow it, than maybe some other businesses who take it for granted. Like, you're in a space, you just chuck people together and a culture will form, right? We've been so intentional about it, and we've been very protective about it as well. So I think for sure that would be, for me, the biggest myth, that you can't have a good team culture remotely, out of the many, many other myths that are not true.
What are some of the things you're doing to nurture and build your culture right now on your team?
I think being very explicit about values to have, ways to sort of behave and treat people, and just always being extremely upfront about it. It has to be quite explicitly said. When, even from the get-go, if you come across like a job listing from us, it puts it down there, like, these are our values, or this is how we operate. When you're being interviewed, we have a pretty rigorous hiring process. A hiring process would be, when you send in an application, it has resume, cover letter, portfolio, but it also has an introduction video. And that's because we get like hundreds and hundreds of applicants, anywhere from 700 to 1,000 applicants per job posting. And so we have to sort through quite a lot. So that really helps us be able to sort of see, learn a bit more about the person, sort of see what they choose to talk about. And then from those 700, 800, 900 applicants, we usually put only a dozen to 2 dozen through the interview rounds. And they have 2 rounds of interviews, one with me, one with our COO. And then if they get through that, they have a trial week with the entire team where they work on an internal project, and they get paid for that time. But the whole time through, there are multiple rounds of vetting. The team have a say as well. And throughout the whole thing, we're just watching out for, is this person going to add to the culture? Are they going to bring across that same sort of values? And we look out for the skill set, but the culture fit, I think, is a much bigger, more important piece for us. And that's just by being very explicit and knowing very well what it is that we're looking for in a person that joins the team.
So when you're hiring, you're mainly looking at their cultural fit. Are there any other things which you're looking when you're hiring someone? Because I know working remotely can be slightly different than an office. There are certain attributes. Are there some specific things which you're targeting and trying to look for in your applicants when you're hiring?
Yeah, I would say being a team player is obviously a really big one. And I think it's extra important when you're remote, because it's not an environment in which you can sort of like drag someone along to be like, you've got to join in on this. It has to be, that person has to be a sort of person that just automatically thinks about the team. So I think that's a really big one. And then the second is, I think, anyone who has had some either experience working remotely or some experience working for themselves, if they're the sort of person that can sort of think big picture, how can I be valuable? How can I bring value to the team, to the projects, to our clients, to my teammates, to the business, and they're able to take initiative and sort of start things on their own. Like, those are all really good traits to have in a remote employee.
Very cool. Very cool. So what are the tools which you're using to actually run your remote business? Are there any favorite tools which you guys are using?
Oh, I am such a huge fan of real-time board. Like,
of what?
Real-time board. They're like a whiteboard kind of canvas tool. Have you ever heard of it?
Whiteboard, you mean?
Yeah, it's like a whiteboard, but it's called real-time board.
Okay.
So it's I think I've been using them for maybe a year and a half. I want to say a year and a half. No, maybe more than that. And I use it for just like everything. We do like virtual client workshops with our clients all on real-time board. I plan out like, this is the company structure, these are company goals, like strategically, tactically, sort of like check them off. I use it just to put down like sort of sales processes or like workflow processes.
What's the URL of that one, just for anyone
So
listening
good.
in?
Real-time board, so it's REAL, real time, TIME, and then board, BOARD.com.
All right, I'll make sure we'll include it in the show notes.
Oh, so good. I'm such a huge fan. I think the amount of like gushing that I do about them is it's a bit ridiculous, but they're just so good and really impressive product. I think they have a really solid product team. They constantly release like new updates that are just all super on point, super solid. I'm not being paid for this, I promise.
We're not affiliated like in any end here.
They're so good. So I would highly encourage checking them out.
Any other tools or favorite ones in your toolbox?
Favorite ones? Google Calendar. I mean, I know it's kind of a standard and it's not new, super exciting, but it's, really, really robust, and they have done a lot of things for sort of managing time zones as well. So because I live by my calendar, it gets an A++ for me, especially with this new redesign. And then, I mean, Slack is really well known, but specifically the Giphy integration with Slack, where you can just Giphy someone. I think I respond to more things than I should with just GIFs.
That's good. It adds emotion, I think, in
it's visual, and it kind of helps, gives you a bit of a laugh, but I think it also does add a bit to just having a little bit more fun, a little bit of team culture, even if you're not like on a call. So yeah, I would recommend all those things. Recently we just discovered Notion. Not sure if you've heard of it. It's Notion.
Never heard of it, no.
I think they're pretty new, but so far it's been pretty fun poking around at it.
Mm-hmm. All right. I'll make sure to include this in the link. What is the URL of Notion?
I think it's Notion, notion.so.
All right, no problem. I'll make sure to include it in the show notes. So I have to ask it. What are your top 3 favorite spots in the world to work remotely and why?
Top 3 favorite spots to work remotely. Okay, so straight off the bat, my favorite country, place to be in, live in, work from, hands down, New Zealand. I love New Zealand. It is beautiful. Everyone is really, really friendly. It's full of nature and sort of like outdoor activities. And when I was there for like a winter season to do some skiing. So I was there for 3 months, and if I would spend my mornings either skiing, or if I didn't do that, then I would probably go like on a hike or just like drive around with a friend. And it's just everywhere you look, it's so kind of like peaceful, and it's really untouched, and it's so beautiful everywhere you go. But it also is such a change, I think, from a lot of really big cities where it's just this, it feels like a constant sort of rat race that you're in, and it feels like it's go all the time, and you don't really stop to sort of take in a breath of fresh air. I mean, it'd be a bit hard to find fresh air here, but it's kind of it feels a lot in I think bigger cities, like society has gotten very caught up in itself, and it just wants to progress for the sake of progression without actually stopping to appreciate just things around. And New Zealand just has that. They have this work-life balance that maybe leans a bit too far into the life side of the work-life balance. But it's just, everything there is amazing, and people there are amazing. The nature's amazing, so many things to do. And you just feel really, I don't know, happy.
That's an important feeling to have, yeah.
It is, and it's surprisingly rare. So, that's a really
I agree with this.
Big plus. Other 2 places, that would be so hard to choose. Um, I really like Japan, not necessarily to work from, but it's just such a interesting, culturally different place. Everyone's, super polite, but they have ways and structures and systems of doing things that I just find really fascinating. And everyone just pays so much care and attention to whatever it is that they're doing, whether it's their job or something that they're working on, or how they dress or how they arrange things or how they, put food together. Just the amount of care and detail that goes into that is just, you can't help but appreciate it. And the last one, I would say Singapore, just because they're, it's kind of a bit of the opposite of New Zealand. It's, it's a big city. It's a lot of go, go, go. There's a lot of progress, but I think the things that I really love about Singapore is that there is a lot of meritocracy, which means, it's really about what you do and the value that you bring at the end of the day. And I would say, I've traveled around so much, and this is by far the one place where I feel like, people get along regardless of race or religion or gender. Obviously there are things that still kind of like segregate society a little bit, but you don't feel as limited here if you are of a racial minority or if you are of a specific gender. It's really just about like what you can do at the end of the day. And over the years, I've just come to really, really appreciate that about my country. So I have to put that on the list.
I have to ask you a question about your country. Around 1 hour ago, just before we started interviewing, I was actually listening to a podcast about happiness when I was doing a walk here on the beach. And the guy that wrote a book about happiness said that Singapore is one of the top 3 happiest countries in the world. And in terms of satisfaction, where you have a type of happiness where people are satisfied with their life. Do you think that's true?
I'm really surprised with that. I have to say, I'm actually really surprised with that. I mean, to be perfectly honest, I think that this is a country and a city where you could have almost everything that you would want. There is so little, like there's almost like no corruption really. Everything is really, really safe. Everything's really efficient, effective. Everything works. Everything runs. It's just, the whole thing just works really well. Sometimes maybe a bit, works a bit too well. And I do find that there's an interesting mix. And I think part of it is that, it's my country, so I know it really well. And I've had years of just experience with people here living here and understanding it. I think that it's easy to be kind of spoiled with how amazing everything is, and kind of take it a bit for granted. And I do see that around. But then I would say on the flip side as well, it's, if you take away all these sort of, baseline Maslow hierarchy type needs, or the problems from not having those needs away, people should be happy. I don't know if anecdotally this is what I have discovered, so that's why I'm surprised. But, logically, I think it should make sense.
Very cool. So do you think remote work is the future?
For certain industries, yes. I definitely do think so. And possibly in the future, as technology sort of develops, even certain industries that we think might not be able to go remote, I think potentially could in some way, shape or form. But I would like to think that remote working is the future for a lot of people, a lot of industries, a lot of jobs.
Mm-hmm. Nice. And you've been again like running a company for 5 years and working remotely for 7. Is there one advice you would give to a founder or someone who is listening in and wishes to start also working remotely and growing for a business?
Just I have to pick just one.
You could do 2 if you want, of course.
Okay. Okay, 2. The first is to systemize and visualize. I know that's a bit cheating because I combined 2 points into kind of like one, but they kind of go hand in hand.
That's
So
good. I accept it. Yeah.
to systemize, just, for, whether it's for yourself of how you work or how you travel or how you live, that's something that you can rely on. So it doesn't have to be you thinking about something all the time, or you remembering to do something. But then also when you have a team, a system is something that should be able to sort of stand on its own, and it's not relying on, you or another person. And it has sort of a clear way of people being able to work together, but it also does sort of scale over time. And then visualizing that system helps sort of everyone. I think a lot of remote working people are really concerned about communication. And the thing is, communication issues happen everywhere, even in real life settings,
Sure.
even in an office. Going remote is the chance to be very intentional about there and sort of do it better. It's almost like you have to find a better solution. And visualizing by putting things down, whether it's words or a diagram or a sketch or a real-time board, or a Trello, Kanban, whatever it is, like visualize that so that people can be sort of looking at something together, and it makes it sort of easy for everyone to stay on the same page and everyone to sort of understand. So that would be my first point of advice. The second is to take care of yourself.
I love it.
It's so important. It's again, like I learned it the hard way, right? So that's why I kind of keep preaching it now, and I feel like I say it really often, because it's so easy just to think like, yeah, I'll just sleep when I'm dead, which I hear really often, or like, no, this deadline is really, really important, and or I see people sort of struggling emotionally or psychologically, and they don't think that it's that bad, and they don't want to get help for it, or they neglect their body, they don't exercise, they don't eat right, they don't sleep well. And again, all the things I've listed out are all things that I've made my way through, sometimes all at once. And it just takes such a toll on you. And it's kind of, if you set out to run a business, remote or not, it's because you sort of have a dream of where you want it to go, and you want to enjoy that dream, right? Or if you set out to be a remote worker or a digital nomad, you do it because you're after sort of the benefits, or it sort of fulfills a dream of that lifestyle. And if you have both, like you're kind of working towards a lifestyle that you want. And if you are not, physically healthy, you can't enjoy it. If you're not emotionally healthy, you can't enjoy it. If you have just piles and piles of psychological issues that you just sort of swept under the rug, you're not going to enjoy it. At the end of the day, if you are not actually enjoying it, if you are not looking after yourself, then what's the point? Like, what are you sacrificing your health on all fronts for? To meet a deadline, to, earn X more cash, to, like, what's the point at the end of the day, right? So that would be probably like my biggest piece of advice.
Love it. I just want to strengthen your second point. I'm 100% with you. Taking care of myself, I think, is the number one important thing in my life. And after I take care of myself, I'm able to take care of people I love. I'm able to take care of my company, my business, which sometimes, if you look at the baby analogy, it's like sort of my baby, which I'm growing. And I'm able to take care of the people in my team, and I'll be able to be a better CEO, coach, and leader as well. So 100% with you there. Are there any challenges of remote work which you think haven't been yet solved today?
I would say the big one would probably be that whole loneliness psychology thing. I think as well that it is really difficult to get to a point where, as a nomad that is on the go constantly, you have built up enough of a sort of support and stability around you. And I think that's really, really challenging. There's so many benefits to this lifestyle. And I will say as well that, just because you're remote working doesn't mean you're traveling all the time. But I find that it does tend to have quite a heavy correlation for quite a lot of people. And it's just fundamentally not a lifestyle that is full of stability. And I think that sometimes that lack of stability can make it very challenging to focus 100% on work, or being able to sort of grow that. And I don't know if that's something that can really be solved, and this whole sort of feeling a bit lonely and feeling isolated, even if you're not a remote worker. I think that's something that's still really difficult to solve. I think there's sort of things that you can do to mitigate the symptoms or kind of help things out a bit, but at the end of the day, it's about feeling connected and feeling like you have a place that you belong, you have your tribe and your community. But if you're always on the go, is belonging to a digital tribe or community enough? I'm not sure that I believe so.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Nice. So, this perspective, I heard a nice thing where, for example, social media in one way connects us more than any other time in history, but in the same time, in some aspects, it disconnects us more as well, because there is no the actual real human touch, and people can build their fake online personalities even sometimes. This can happen. So that's an interesting perspective. As we're getting kind of closer to the end of the show, I thought we can wrap it up with a few personal fun questions. So what's a fun or exciting thing you've done this week?
This week? Well, just literally just before hopping on here and talking to you, I was actually giving a talk also about remote working for people who are interested in sort of potentially making a change in their lifestyle. And what I found really interesting was the range of people who were there and listening. There were people that just worked in industries where you're just like, well, that's not really a digital nomad type industry, but it seems to have kind of hit the masses and kind of captured the fascination of a lot of different kinds of people, which is understandable. The lifestyle does sort of set up this image of white sandy beaches and margarita in your hands, but I think it's actually much deeper than that. I think a lot of people are starting to feel as though, society is telling me that I need to do all these things in order to be happy, and I've done all these things and I'm still not happy. Like, what is it that I'm actually after? Is it autonomy? Is it freedom? Is it new experiences? Is it purpose? Is it meaning? And I feel like there is this big question that more and more people seem to be asking, and more people seem to be, willing and a bit more daring and sort of challenging the status quo, and not feeling like they have to abide by society's conventions to be, I need to be a certain way in order to be accepted. I think people are starting to feel like their happiness and their purpose is more than what they've been hearing all their lives. And I feel like a lot of people are starting to become a bit more ready to take charge of that. And it's not just about career progression. It's not about buying the fanciest car, the biggest house. It's about like, okay, at the end of the day, are you going to enjoy your life, or are you not going to enjoy your life? And that for me is just such a really nice thing to sort of see. And it's just really kind of, heartwarming, cheesy as it kind of sounds, but it feels good to see people kind of want to be happy and kind of try and go for it and try and gun for it, as opposed to just, following what convention has told them to do. So
yeah, I'm definitely supportive. Not to follow what society tells you. Follow your heart, follow what you want to do.
Agreed.
What's the first thing you do when you start your workday?
Oh, I need a coffee. Okay, first I need a shower. First, I absolutely need a shower. I have sort of like a little ritual. Just 2 weeks ago, I was actually on a road trip in Belize in Central America. And it took 2 days to get there and 4 days to get back. It was a long journey. And in that time, I was living in a van with a friend. So he bought an ambulance and then converted it into a van. But because it was a van, there was no Wi-Fi and there was no shower. And I couldn't live with the no Wi-Fi. I had a hard time with the no shower, because I'm a shower 2 times a day, if not more, type person. And that was a real struggle. he managed to find a shower nearby like almost every day. So I, give him real props for that. But for me, a day starts straight away, get up, it's got to be a shower, put some like really good music on, and just kind of, start my day out. Trying to wake up and trying to get some energy, but then also like singing along to some really good songs, getting dressed, and then I have to go get a coffee. And almost all the time, I like spending a little bit of time in a cafe. I don't do a whole lot of work anymore at cafes just because I need internet connection and I kind of need a bit more of like a proper space. But just to be able to get a coffee, nice iced latte, no matter how cold it is, it's going to be iced, and I'll sit down and I'll just kind of relax a bit, have my coffee, just kind of enjoy the day a little bit, think a bit about what I need to do, what I have, what the day is going to look like, what the day is going to feel like. And yeah, that's how I start my day. It's not superbly interesting.
Very cool. Very cool. So, Melissa, where can people find you online? And if anyone listening in may be interested in the services of your design studio, where would you want to send them over to?
Yeah, so you can go to our website. It's www.melewi.net. Net. You can also Google us, and you'd be able to find us pretty easily, I think. Don't get us confused with the country, Melewi. It's 2 E's, not 2 A's. Also, you can find us across Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. If you're looking for me personally, you can find me on Instagram. It's instagram.com/thedesignnomad. The same handle on Twitter as well, and on LinkedIn. So fairly easy, and again, that's THEDESIGNNOMAD. I know it's a bit long, but yeah.
Ah, it's easy, and I'll make sure to add it to the show notes as well. Very cool. Melissa, thank you very much for coming to the show. I know it's very late on your end in Singapore. It's morning time for mine here, so we made it work, and I appreciate you being on the show.
It's all right. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for the really interesting, insightful questions. It was really fun answering them, and all good things to think about, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.